welcome back to the
Hello!
TMCJ. God damn it. I fucking knew you were going to do something. Welcome back to the TMCJ podcast. This is segment 2, our media segment. And now you can speak, jackass.
Yay! I was going for a high-powered entry. That's what he said.
God damn it. I
Sorry.
was taking a drink of tea. Oh my god. We have quite a bit of media to talk about this
We
time
do.
around. For one thing, we watched a movie a while back and never talked about it.
Yeah, we completely forgot last week. Or at least we think we did.
Yeah, maybe we... No.
I don't think we ever did talk about it.
I don't think we ever did talk about it. So, I mean, well, if we did talk about it, you people listening are in for a double whammy because we watched Spaceballs. It was my pick a week or so back, and I decided to go for the parody classic from the 80s. Spaceballs being a giant parody of basically 80s and sci-fi in general. So Star Wars and
Primarily Star Wars.
primarily
and there's a lot
Star
of
Wars, but
references.
there's little bits of other sci-fi in there too, like Star Trek and whatnot.
Alien and all sorts.
Also, just quite a few, a lot of cultural references too, which some of them, like, I didn't even get the first time I watched it because there are cultural references from the 80s. There were also a few jokes that, to go back to our earlier segment, probably could not be made today without incurring the wrath of
Twitter.
yeah.
That being said, God, it was 2 weeks ago now.
Yeah.
It was very enjoyable. I remember it being very funny, for the most part. There were some jokes that kind of went past me.
Yeah.
And the costumes did kind of gross me out, but I don't know.
It was
It's
one of
the
those
best they
that-
had at the time, I guess.
Yeah, and it was one of those, like, it was cheesy, low-budget 80s special effects.
Yeah. Oh yeah, but the special effects were meant to be bad. Like,
Yeah.
it was clearly made as a B movie, minus the attractive model.
I am your father's cousin's brother's former roommate.
Yeah. There were a lot of good jokes.
There's a few good lines in it, too.
I really liked the dark side, the Empire side of it, as it were.
The Spaceballs.
I liked everything about that, like the costume design, the jokes, how everyone was like related on the ship.
Oh, yeah. Who's he? He's an asshole, sir. It's like, yeah, I can see that, but what's his name? No, that is his name. Gunnery Sergeant Lieutenant Asshole. Or something like that. And he's just like, how many assholes do I have on this ship? And everyone's like, yo-ho! He's like, I knew it, I'm surrounded by assholes.
God, you remember that quite clearly. Holy shit.
I've seen the movie a few times.
Yeah.
So I also tend to have like it's weird for like details like people's names or like I don't know, things like that. I tend to have a very imprecise and vague memory, but when it comes to like things that are visual, like movies, video games, at work, technical specifications for machines, I have a very, very like crystal clear memory.
Well, when relaying a visual memory, you can't really get it wrong, can you? When you're relaying words, it's very easy to trip up.
Yeah, and maybe that's what it is. But I think I've said this before, but like when I think in my head, you know, like in a movie, the trope is like when people are thinking, they're hearing words in their head. I don't. Like whenever I'm thinking to myself, it's all pictures.
Yeah.
I don't think in words. I think in pictures.
It's a shame you can't tell the difference between left and right.
That's true. But I can very reliably, when I'm outside, immediately tell you which way is north, south, east, and west.
Yeah. So much so that I remember back when we were playing PUBG, I'd purposefully say the opposite direction to make you go the right direction.
I do. I get them backwards so often. All right, let's move on. We got a lot of media, so let's move on from talking about how much of a dumbass I am to talking about our next thing. But no, in general, Spaceballs. I like. Sorry, one more thing that I found funny: their parody of the Force as the Schwartz.
Yeah.
The conflict at the end there when they make the lightsabers and they're kind of holding them by their crotch. The guy's like, "Ah, Lone Star, I see your Schwartz is as big as mine." Oh, in the fucking merchandising shop.
Yeah.
Spaceballs the lunchbox! Spaceballs the flamethrower! The kids love this one.
It reminded me of the, what was it, Life of Brian? The Monty Python, where during the song at the end, like, we've got CDs in the gift shop on the way out. Some of us got to live too, you know.
Monty Python did some really good skits.
Yeah, some groundbreaking stuff.
Actually,
but anyway, on to the... Go on.
Sorry, just on the subject of Monty Python, I know we've got a lot, but I want one more quote. There's a Monty Python's Flying Circus skit where they're making fun of like newscasters like just interviewing random people off the street to talk about whatever the relevant topic is, and so they're interviewing a guy who's clearly very posh. You know, he's got like a nice hat on. He's wearing a suit, and he's got that very high kind of posh British accent. And he just goes like, I don't even remember what they were. This was completely unrelated to the question they were asking him, but he's like, "Well, I think that we should exterminate the lower classes. I think we should kill the lower classes first by destroying their homes with bombs and rockets, and then, as they run screaming into the street, mowing them down with machine gun fire. And I know my views are not popular, but I have never been a man who courts popularity." And it's delivered with such just a deadpan like monotone that it makes me laugh every time I see it. Monty Python's great.
Anything is better with a good British accent. Ding.
Yeah. How was that one, by the way? Did I do good with that accent?
Yeah, it wasn't bad. I thought you were gonna put more of a hammy spin on it.
No, I tried to make it authentic. Anyway. All right, so do you want to talk to us about Aliens, the movie we watched?
I thought we were going with Sarah Millican first.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. We did do two things this week. All right, go with that first.
So we had a bit of a chill, a super chill movie night at one point because I think none of us were up for anything too intense.
Yeah, I was getting over a cold.
Yeah, so we watched this British comedian called Sarah Millican, and she has a very niche audience, should we say. And when I say niche, I don't mean like a small audience. I think a lot of people will find her funny, but
a lot of people will equally find
jokes,
her, not.
Yeah, all of her jokes surround a single kind of
trope.
Yeah, so it's mostly like particularly female body related jokes.
Well, there's that, but there was also just a lot of like I think a lot of her jokes, and the ones that made me laugh the most, were just around like normal everyday life.
Yeah, she does. When you look at her and when you hear her speak, you think this is a person like you or me, right?
Yeah.
They're not reveling in fancy glamour, even though they are a very famous comedian. They're not like a high Hollywood name. You expect to see them in Asda kind of thing, walking around. So it's a bit more refreshing to know that you're, I don't know, it's kind of inspiring.
She has a very approachable air to her.
Yeah, she's very mumsy.
Yeah.
Even though I imagine she would rather not have kids.
Well, she says that
Based
in
on
one of
her
her jokes that
personality.
she doesn't want kids, but she does. She actually has the air of like a lovable aunt.
Yeah. But no, very, very funny jokes. None of which we can repeat on here because
Yeah, because some of them
YouTube.
are kind of rough.
Uh,
But I don't know. I found her very endearing, and I was surprised because when when new comedians, especially these days, whenever I'm watching like a new comedian, they tend to be hit or miss because people are. When I say these days, I mean people are really terrified of telling jokes that are gonna like be controversial.
yeah.
But she
The
completely
high-end
sidestepped
comedians.
that because all of her jokes are just about like life, just everyday normal people doing silly shit.
Yeah. And even then, a lot of the judgments, she's quite self-deprecating in her humour. And don't get me wrong, I don't think she's affected by it at all. I think she's one of these people, much like my friend, who are perfectly happy with the way they are, and they're happy to joke about it. And I think that's a really good thing.
Well, yeah.
And it also makes other people feel more comfortable because, I mean, there's nothing super controversial coming out of her mouth.
And it comes down to like I think I've always been of the philosophy that if you can't laugh at yourself, you've got a problem. Like
Mm-hmm.
Either there's some sort of like you've got some personal shit you got to deal with or something. But if you can't see your own flaws and go like, yeah, that's totally it. Which it's one of the reasons that I refer to myself as a fucking angry dwarf.
Mm.
I'm not like I am short, but I'm not terribly short. But I'm comfortable being short, and I know that I can lose my temper pretty easily. But I know that that's a flaw about myself, and I can make fun of it.
Yeah.
And I think that there's something very endearing about a person who is able to recognize their own obvious flaws and make fun of them. And she was very able to do that, and she's made a career out of it. I think one of her jokes was like, my agent's been trying to tell me that I should try to branch out a little bit more. So at first, he's like, oh, try acting, and I was pretty shit at it. It was just like
very matter of fact. Yeah.
but that was her style, and it was really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not like so. People think that you have to, I guess, sit through to the end of any comedy. If you're not enjoying a comedy club thing, then you can walk out. It's not a freaking cool kids club meeting where they're like the doors are locked and that kind of stuff. If you don't like it, just leave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that people don't. Yeah. I don't want to go back too much to what we were talking about earlier, but that's something that I just don't understand. Like people can't just. It's like there's a mute button. If somebody's being a jackass, mute them. Like I'm talking about online, and in real life, the equivalent of that is somebody's being a jackass, just leave. I mean, it doesn't apply to all situations, but if you're in that one, comedy club, she says something you don't like, you're welcome to go. But no, I found myself like very entertained. I was pleasantly surprised. I may actually go back and listen to like more of her stuff because I was,
Yeah, I mean that was the third part of a trilogy. I think it was because me and Alicia have watched the other two, and that's why we wanted to watch the third one with you.
Yeah, it was quite good. I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I was brought to tears in one of them. I think I told you the story already, but I was sat there with Alicia and her parents watching this, and some really immature joke came up, and I just started giggling like a 4-year-old.
But that's a sign of
so
a really good
embarrassed.
comedian if they can take people and just like. There are comedians that I'll listen to and I'll chuckle and I'll be like, oh, that was pretty good. But then there are like really good comedians where they can do that, where I am breathless because I'm laughing so hard.
I'm trying so hard to keep a straight face, and there's like a tear rolling down my face because
Yeah.
I'm in front of two important adults in my life, and so I can't be a complete tool bag. Fortunately, they found it funny as well. It was just no one found it quite as funny as I did, and I was very embarrassed.
Well, you have a lot more self-control than I do, because
I did not. I failed terribly.
I fucking...
I just kind of buried my face in the sofa at one point.
Well, I mean, you and, well, anyone that's listened to this podcast have heard how I laugh, and it's
Oh, I love your laugh, though. It's so evil.
it's quite embarrassing to be with me in public when I find something funny.
Yeah, everyone knows. Oh, man. Yesterday, when we were playing Jackbox, because Alicia's got quite a unique laugh as well.
Yeah.
And so, I always feel so good when I do like a particularly funny joke, and I'm like, oh, I don't know if they're gonna like it, I don't know if they're gonna understand it or not. And then there's this like deep booming laugh of Kaiser, and this pixie-like laugh from Alicia.
And it's like,
It's
oh,
the funniest thing.
you struck gold.
It's like, bam, hit it. And then I start laughing because you guys are just crazy.
Oh, man. All right.
Oh,
well,
God.
We've spent quite a bit of time on that. Let's
God,
move
coffee
on to
went
the
down
other
so
movie, which
bad.
is not nearly as amusing.
Yes, Aliens was my pick for that was my turn. I was gonna say for the week, but you know.
Well, yeah, and considering we watched Alien the other day, this
Yeah,
being
the
sequel.
naming scheme is garbage. I hate it. So Alien 1 is Alien, Aliens is Alien 2.
The titling conventions, yeah, it's just whatever.
It completely changes the kind of horror that is in the first one, in my opinion. It's gone from the kind of game where you have no weapons and you can't fight back, you have to just hide and run. Switches from that to, I mean, you do have weapons and you have to use those weapons because there's like 50 times as many enemies.
Yeah, well, and
They're
the few
coming at
enemies
you
that exist,
constantly.
if they ever get close enough to you, you're fucked.
Yeah. Even if you kill them, at close range, you're still fucked because they have acid blood and it just destroys you.
Yeah. But going back to something that we discussed many podcasts ago, and I think we talked about briefly when we were talking about Alien, I can definitely see why after watching this movie, why Ripley is considered like the peak example of like how to write like strong women well in stories.
Yeah, I know we keep bringing this up, but it is...
Well, it's something that's... I bring it up more often now because it's something that is handled so poorly in modern movies. But that just might be poor writing quality in general. I'm signaling out, women unfairly, and it's just that writing in general is bad right now. But I think that regardless of her gender, Ripley is a character that is written extremely well. She has a fabulous character arc. She's very human and relatable, and she gets shit done. Like at the beginning of the movie, she's very. So I'm gonna big spoilers. I'm gonna do a quick plot synopsis. You fill in any gaps that I happen to hit. So it picks up from the last Alien movie, where Ripley has somebody finds her shuttle and they wake her back up and bring her to a hospital that's in a station floating around Earth, and she finds out that she's actually been asleep for 57 years because the ship had missed and started drifting, and it was only sheer luck that a salvage ship managed to find her.
Yep.
So while her and her cat, the cat did live, while she's recovering, or once she recovers, she goes to talk to the corporate people from the company that her ship was a part of. And after talking to them and kind of giving her account. They don't believe her. They don't believe that there was an alien. They don't believe that there was any issues. And then she finds out that they sent colonists to the planet where the alien egg was found. And they've been there for 20 years already.
Was it 20 years?
20 years, they
Yeah,
said.
it was 20 years. Yeah.
So, and they're terraforming it, and they're going to make a colony. So then she immediately goes like, oh God, families, all these people are going to be dead. And a few days later, one of the corporate people comes to her and goes like, hey, we lost track of this colony. Would you be willing to come along as a consultant with the contingent that's going there to find out what happened? And she immediately knows what happened. Like, the aliens hatch, the colonists are probably dead, and she's still traumatized and having nightmares about all this shit, so she does not want to go. But after, like, another night of having nightmares, she decides, no, I have to go. And so she calls the guy up and reluctantly agrees to go on the expedition as a consultant, staying back. The military people are the ones going in. And it's very clear throughout these early scenes that she's still deeply traumatized by what happened.
Oh yeah, that scene at the beginning where it's it doesn't tell you that it's a nightmare, but when she's like, "Kill me," basically. Yeah, that's very emotional.
It is, and they do a very good job bringing that across throughout the early parts of the movie. But this is the point, like when shit hits the fan, and they find out all the colonists have disappeared. They find them, and they find them in a nest of these aliens, and they've been used to breed more aliens. Most of them are dead, and the ones that
also
aren't
they find
dead,
a living colonist.
Sorry? What was that?
First off, they find the living colonist.
Oh, that's true. They do find a little girl who serves the role of the cat in this movie.
Yeah, that's about it.
she kind of hints at what happened there, and this also gives Ripley another very humanizing moment, because she's not just like, because she comes off very cold and robotic at times, but that's just because she's a very,
when she's in work mode kind of thing.
Yeah, she has a very clear work mode, but it showed a very human side of her as she sort of like, this little girl who has also been deeply traumatized. She has this moment of almost coming to terms with her own trauma by taking care of this little girl.
Yeah, I mean, if you consider the fact that Ripley in the first film was absolutely like, her mind was devastated by the fact that one alien killed 5 people.
Yeah.
Now we have a little girl who's had her family and like 50 other odd members that she probably knew eaten, and then she's been alone on the space station, on the
planet,
moon base, whatever the fuck it's called, for, doesn't specify how long, living in a garbage dump.
Yeah. Well, it's the it led to quite a few funny one-liners like that attitude, or that I found. Well, the first one being, to reinforce what you said, there's a scene that early on in the movie when they're just about to land on the planet, and Ripley is, taking nervous drags on a cigarette while she's asked to brief the Marines on what she saw. And she's clearly, shaky and traumatized, and she gets most of it out about how, like, this alien has the acid blood and it killed these people and how it got on the ship in the first place. And one of the Marines, she gives like a cheesy one-liner like, "Oh, you just need to point me in the direction, I'll shoot it," or something like that.
Yeah.
And then they do a few jokes, and then Ripley like stabilizes herself and just goes, "Are you done? Because one of these things killed my entire fucking crew in less than 24 hours. And it was just like, holy shit, there's like the badass that like, because clearly this is what I mean about good writing. They managed to take a character and without anything overt, they managed to show her as somebody who is capable and competent, cool under pressure, but also deeply affected when bad things happen to them. And then at the top of it also is capable of like genuine human compassion and kindness.
Yeah.
Like there's so much nuance to it, and I can see why she's held up as a shining example of like a really good protagonist.
And I think the
Sorry, one last. Let's hold on to that
Go on.
thought. The other one-liner that made me laugh was later in the movie with the little girl. They're talking about how they have to survive for 7 days or something like that, and that one of the Marines starts panicking, and Ripley is like, "Keep it together. Like, you're supposed to be highly trained. This little girl survived on her own with no weapons for longer than that." And it was like, but she, again, the cool under pressure thing. Anyway, go on. What was your thought?
I was gonna say the Marine that survived.
Yeah.
He also really liked his character, and he was a lot like Ripley in many ways. Go on.
Well, yeah, because he was a low-ranking guy, and when his higher-ups either got injured or killed, command fell to him. And there's this really cool moment where the corporate guy is urging them to, not to wipe the aliens out, but to try and keep the facility and not destroy everything. And Ripley's like, no, nuke it from orbit. It's the only way to be sure. And then she reminds the corporate guy that, the military guy's in charge, and the military guy then, the corporate guy then appeals to him, the guy you're talking about, Hicks or Higgs, I think.
I think Higgs was the coward, but I could be wrong.
I think it's Hicks. No, I think the coward was somebody different. The game over, man.
Yeah.
But Hicks. So I think it was Hicks, but the guy who ends up in charge, he looks at the corporate guy and goes like, "You're right, I am in charge. And you know what? I think we should go up, evacuate, and nuke it from orbit. It's the only way to be sure." He literally repeats Ripley's line word for word, and then just gives her like a nod. Like, there's this kind of mutual understanding that's kind of formed at that point. And this was after a fairly harrowing escape that happened.
Also, whilst it's not at all... So, between that character and Ripley, there's no... I don't think they even hug at any point, right?
Yeah, there's no...
But you can feel a very real chemistry.
Yeah, that's something that I think is also... that sets this apart. There's never a need for any of the characters to get into a kind of, relationship, right?
No.
Like, a relationship, when I say relationship, I mean a sexual relationship.
Yeah.
Or an affectionate
they don't kiss
relationship. But,
or anything, but by the end you're like, that is one hell of a power couple.
Well, yeah, exactly. But it's never anything overt. Like, throughout the movie, those two characters, they definitely form a bond, but it's more like a camaraderie bond than anything else. Like, they don't fall into the trap of, we have a male character and a female character. Kiss!
Yeah.
It's that they're really just, she's a normal person who's been thrust into extraordinary circumstances, and he's a run-of-the-mill soldier who's just, come into command, and they gain this level of mutual respect for each other throughout the movie. And I think that's brilliant.
Slight spoilers for you, Kaiser.
Yeah.
I think they do actually end up getting married.
Do they? Well, I mean, but that's fine. If that's
it
further plot
and
development, but they don't
for
feel the need to shoehorn it into this movie.
Absolutely. And it kind of fits. It makes sense. As opposed to when they're just like, here's two hot people, let's make them...
Well, it's the same thing, so my grandparents, my grandfather and grandmother got married. My grandfather was a Marine, and my grandmother was a nurse. In situations like that, that sort of stuff does happen, and it develops.
Yeah,
but
it just makes sense, kind of.
They don't make it unnatural in the movie, and that was my point. And in this movie, they're not distracting themselves like that. They know that they're in a serious situation.
Sorry.
God damn it. Gesundheit.
Probably max the mic.
But they don't make it a focal point. It's not like, oh god, we're all gonna die in 5 hours. Let's fuck. No, it's...
Yeah.
They handle it very well, and...
If anything, with the way that the character Newt is handled, Ripley is very motherly.
She is.
I think is a fair description.
But motherly in the sense of, like a mother bear defending her cubs.
Yeah,
kind of
very protective. Like when they're in the, she goes over to, like, see if Newt's all right. They're under the bed. She's looking after her, and then it's like, hang on a second, something's not right. By the way, that scene is a brilliant scene in my opinion.
Oh my god,
the betrayal.
There are
the realization.
There are so many moments. That scene is a perfect example. There are so many moments where they pull off brilliantly the writing technique of showing and not telling. They don't tell the audience what happened. They show them. Where's the gun go? Why is the thing overturned? How does over there? Why is the door locked? But it's all shown.
It's not a jump scare. It's a creeping horror that you're like, oh shit.
While I was asleep, somebody fucked us over. Yeah.
Yeah. God, it was good. And then, of course, the payback later when the asshole runs into a room with an alien in.
Yeah. Well, he tries to lock the rest of them out. I do want to point out something interesting about the scene just before he locks them out, when they're fighting the aliens in that room. So Ripley, like, she's just a ship, like a flight officer, right, for a civilian ship. She's not like familiar with army weapons or anything like that.
Not at all.
So handed a state-of-the-art like assault rifle. Hicks teaches her how to use it, but that's all in theory. She never actually fires it because they have limited ammo. That scene when she first starts firing at the aliens, and I thought this was a brilliant piece of just like, again, showing and not telling. She doesn't immediately like become competent with the rifle. Like, even though he's shown her how to use it, she knows how to fire it. When she fires it, she loses control. The rifle like goes up. The recoil like knocks her back into a box. Like she's I loved how they did that. Exactly. That's how a real person who's never handled a firearm before, like especially like a state-of-the-art rifle, would react if they kind of knew in theory, but never. I know the first time I fired a shotgun, I bruised my shoulder because I wasn't prepared for the recoil. Yeah, I knew in theory, but
also she wasn't like doing carefully aimed shots or anything. She was firing from a hip, Arnie style.
Yeah, exactly, and that's not the way you want to handle they said it was a 10mm rifle. That's a lot of powder behind a 10mm is a big ass slug.
Yeah, I assume it was like kind of Space Marine-esque weapons where it's actually like small missiles that they're firing.
For reference, and for those that don't know, the largest caliber round measured in millimeters right now is a 9mm round. So, in most assault rifles, the highest power assault rifle round that I can think of is a 7.62, so 7.62 millimeter.
Yeah.
And that's usually things like Kalashnikovs or AK-47s, yeah. So 10mm is a fucking huge round.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically a grenade launcher at that point.
Well, they did say it did have a 30mm grenade launcher in the bottom of the thing. Of course, leave it to me to pay attention to the weapon specs.
Yeah, and oh god, it was a bit uffy how she like duct taped two weapons together.
But even that part, like, it was a bit cheesy, but I loved they did a lot of like characterization here. She didn't go in there and suddenly become a tactical genius. She was panicking and firing the flamethrower randomly just out of like panic around the corners.
When she initially got down there, she was super like on edge, and she was just shooting everything that could be a thing, and that kind of set off the enemies.
Yeah, and it felt like, okay, this is what a real person would be like if they were stuck in this situation. She's panicked but determined to try and save the little girl.
I was genuinely worried. I mean, okay, so I've already seen the film before, so I don't know why I was worried. But she was firing this flamethrower off, and also looking at the sensor, and it was like, you are 3 meters from the little girl. She's firing off the flamethrower everywhere.
Yep.
I'm like, what are you doing? You're gonna burn the girl.
One thing I was worried about was when she killed the alien there, I'm like, the acid blood, it might get on the girl.
Yeah.
So there were all these like very, very tense moments in it, even if you kind of knew what was coming. And like I could have predicted how that scene was going to go.
Yeah.
Because I figured they weren't going to kill the little girl. For reference, for again, this is huge spoilers. We've been spoiling this whole time, but the little girl gets taken in one scene by the aliens, but not killed. Because
they leave the picture on the floating doll's head.
Yeah, and so Ripley goes down to save the little girl, and honestly, when I saw the floating doll's head, I was like, "Holy shit! They actually killed the little girl!"
Right? Like that could have. Again, it was one of those things where I can't remember the details of the movie, so I was like, "Wait, did she not get out alive with them?"
Yeah, so it was. The movie is very tense. It's the kind of horror that I like, where it's very psychological. And it's very atmospheric. It's the kind of horror that actually affects me. I like horror movies that are like supernatural shit and monsters and like murders and things like that. I'll watch them, but they don't get to me. Like I don't give a crap.
This was not a movie, the jump scare kind.
Yeah. This was a movie that really got to me. Like I was genuinely tense watching this movie, and that doesn't happen to me with many movies.
No. And okay, it is a horror, but it's not one that I was scared of as such. Like, yeah, I was absolutely tense, and I was on the edge of my seat the whole time, which is what you want.
That's the point I was trying to make. I wasn't scared at any point, but I was tense.
They don't go much into like, it's not a visceral film. I wouldn't say.
Well, but that's the thing. Like even visceral horror, that's more just that just makes me nauseous.
Yeah, it makes me feel unwell, and so I don't want to watch The Thing anymore. I want to watch a good scary film.
Yeah, so it's so psychological horror and like this sort of like tense and God, they do such a good job with it.
Especially with the shadows and like the silhouettes of the creature, because everyone knows what the silhouette looks like with the big spiny tail and such.
Well, and they do a very good job. The creatures are only ever shown very briefly on screen for the most part. There's a climactic scene where one of them is shown in full light. I think that kind of works
like I said,
them.
that was kind of my least favorite fight of them.
Yeah, but but with the like for the most part, because they're always cloaked in shadow and they're only shown for a brief time, that adds to the tension and it adds to the whole like feel of everything.
Absolutely. Like, do you remember? I'm sure you remember this. Doctor Who, David Tennant, the Vashta Narada.
Yes,
that is the episode in the library in space.
The Vashta Narada. Yeah, the ones where if in the shadows they just eat you and you're down to a skeleton.
Completely invisible enemy. Like, you don't see the actual monster at any point.
And then,
but
like,
you know it's there.
Yeah, and then you've got the person who, like, they got into their suit and they die in there.
And they're controlling a person,
And then it's just, like, their voice, like...
Their last words repeated,
Yeah, repeated over and over again. That's a very...
Out lights.
A quick synopsis of that episode, because I know that too often we do kind of just... We both know it, so we don't talk about what we're actually talking about. But in Doctor Who, one of in the new series, in one of the older seasons, there was an episode where they go to a library. It was like a galactic library in the future, and it's completely empty. And they find another team who's there basically as archaeologists to find why the library went dark. And what it turns out is there is this tiny parasite that it basically is just like a cloud of dark things, and they consume any meat, and they hide in the shadows. They're a nocturnal predator, so they can't go into the shadows because any of the shadows might actually be these predators. So,
and it's also the first and technically last episode of River Song.
Yeah, that's true. The River Song arc was actually one that I really enjoyed.
Oh, it was brilliant. I mean, it got a bit patchy at the end, but...
Yeah, near the end, you could tell that they were trying to figure out how to wrap it up.
Yeah, with the whole Nazis... Oh, shit, I said the word.
Oh, whatever.
Yeah.
Fuck off, YouTube.
Killing Hotler. And her being like evil all of a sudden and stuff like that. I kind of lost interest at that point. But in the early stages and the mid stages, really good character design.
All right.
We've completely gone off topic.
We
and
have
we're way
gone
over
off
time.
topic, and we are way over, and I still have more to talk about.
We'll
We've only gone through
talk about
half
that
of the
in 3.
media.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in segment 3, I think.
Yeah. This is our fuck. We have nothing prepared this week. Segment 3. So, I think we'll get into that there. For little things, I finished the available seasons of The Expanse. There are more being filmed that aren't released yet. And I also got back to Vikings. And then there's just some random crap that I want to talk about. I assume you have similar things as well.
I've got some random game crap to talk about.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll save that for our segment 3 because we have gone on for way too long in segment 2. But yeah, I'm going to close this out there. Thank you all for listening. This has been segment 2 of the TMCJ podcast. Listen, and you will hear us again for segment 3.